When I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
my head up.
I'm from South Carolina, so I just
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Moss?
Oh, my heart.
Happy 20th anniversary.
My heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? Done.
And dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself. There's
The doctor lived next door to the janitor, to the reverend, and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Doni, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it all the more.
letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover, entered to win it for the long haul baby. All right, it has been one interesting week politically here in the city of Baltimore, in the state of Maryland. Yes, Lord. There was a forum last night up at the Lord's Church. Kudos to Bishop Kevia Fernando Elliott right there at Park Heights and Garrison. We're going to go straight to the phone lines. We had Be More News coverage of that event. Rondi Griffin, correspondent. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm great this morning, Doni.
So, was it a packed house at 5010 Park Heights Avenue last night?
The house was full of interested folks who were looking to get information and answers from all of the candidates.
What piqued your interest? How'd you end up there? Besides the incredible wages we pay you.
Exactly. The thing that interested me is their focus on seniors. As you know, I've for the last 2 years have taken care of my mother and uncle, and so I wanted to see what the focus was going to be on seniors from the candidates who were there, as well as getting input from the community.
Okay, so what mayoral candidates? I understand that Mayor Brandon Scott was not in the house.
Well, Mayor Scott was attending a national mayor's event representing Baltimore, so the moderator made that clear. But the candidates definitely did not pull any punches there. One of the candidates made note that he wasn't there in his community, but it was clarified by the moderator, Jay Miller.
Well, so which candidate swung on the mayor for not being there?
Well, it was Bob.
Oh, Bob Wallace.
Bob Wallace, yes, candidate Wallace.
Okay, and
now the other candidates look a little shook when he said it, but he definitely pulled it out.
Well, according to the last poll I saw, I think it was roughly Brandon had 35, Sheila had about 33, Vignaraja had about 10, and then Bob Wallace had about 3% of the vote.
Now, strangely, I saw a lot of his paraphernalia there, but I did not see Theroux.
Oh, Theroux Vignaraja was a no-show.
I did not see him. I saw a lot of his followers there, but I didn't see him there.
Okay. So, any other developments? Any things stand out in your mind?
Well, like I said, they definitely did not pull any punches. I saw, obviously, the president of the city council was there and represented with, I think, Sharon Sneed and Cohen. So his focus really had been on, I guess the focus had been on their records. And the president of the city council noted that many of the items that he voted for, including the Rex and Parks and for funding for education and jobs for youth, that his opponent, Zeke Cohen, voted against. So it's like the record is clear, my record is clear. So Zeke did respond and rebut, but his rebuttal was just, kind of fell on deaf ears after that.
Okay, so you've now shifted over to the city council president's race.
Yes, I'm sorry. So the forum included the mayor, the mayoral candidates, and the president of the city council race.
Okay, so let me just ask you, of the mayoral candidates, who appealed to you most? Who did you connect with most?
Well, as a forum, I think the folks who were focused on education, Sheila was there. She obviously is a strong candidate, and she had a good platform of things that she would like to finish. Brandon, though he wasn't there, his results kind of stood there, as well as what he's been doing in the city, and many of his followers were there as well. So who stands out to me, obviously, is Brandon Scott.
Okay, so if there was a winner last night, Brandon Scott was the winner, even though he wasn't physically there.
Even as a no-show, that's correct.
Wow. Now, of the city council president, was Sharon Sneed there?
Shannon Sneed was there. She noted that she had to leave early.
Shannon Sneed had to leave early.
She had to leave early, but she did stay, as there was only 1 or 2, I guess maybe 2 minutes into her, into the rest of the forum, and so she did stay. But she did note that she was about to leave. I think the moderator convinced her to stay.
How could she be ready to leave? Do you get that?
I did not get it at all. I was like, of all the places to be, all the candidates in the house and a room full of people with cameras, I definitely would not have said that.
I can see the incumbent not showing. The incumbent mayor, that is. I can see the incumbent mayor not showing for a few reasons. But a candidate for city council president saying that they have to leave, it takes me straight back to when Peter Franchot was announcing his Black Business Initiative in the gubernatorial election. And he said he left early. They let him present first. He told the Black people in the audience, go to my website. And then he got up and took his comptroller's self with his gold coin straight on out the door. And again, he told the Black people, go to my website. Like, are you kidding me, dude? And that's when he felt he had the advantage at that juncture. Now Governor Westmore was in single digits. So maybe he felt he had an advantage. Maybe Shannon Sneed feels as though she has an advantage. But you left the Lord's church? Wow.
Well, she didn't leave, but she announced that she would have to leave, and was about to leave until the moderator gave her the amount of time that was left. So
okay, so who won the city council president presentation? That part of the forum last night.
The president actually delivered on what he said. So his record kind of speaks for itself. Saving houses from being sold for water bills, banned in the box, that sort of stuff. So he was able to speak on his record. I think Zeke was speaking on some ideologies about some of the things he'd like to see, control of the Board of Education, that sort of thing. But but didn't have the track work to say how he would accomplish it. So there was a difference in leadership, I thought, understanding the issues and then understanding actually how to fix the issues. So I'd say the president probably won there.
Good deal. Ronnie Griffin, thank you for joining us today here, and we appreciate the report from the Lord's Church, the mayoral forum. We're about to shift over to former delegate Cheryl Glenn, but thank you for joining us this morning.
No problem, Donnie. Have a great day.
Yes, sir. So next up, we have the one, the only, former delegate Cheryl Glenn. Top of the morning to you, ma'am. How are you? Oh, snap. Can your audio's not working? You got your speaker cut on? Testing. You know what can go wrong in this world of technology can go wrong. Testing. No. Okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try to call you, and we can use the audio from the phone. You just bear tight for a second. We'll see how this works. Hey, where there's a will, there's a way. Well, we'll take the audio. We'll just take this audio. Top of the morning to you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
We're good. So,
and I'm sorry for the technical mishap.
Well, these things happen. First of all, top of the morning to you.
Thank you so much.
Delegate, you have been a fighter in this community. And let me just say, I applaud you for your podcast. We have it featured on bemorenews.com, your first episode. We'd like to encourage you to keep doing it. And we won't ask you about anything from the past. We were going to talk about today, this mayoral election. And I say that because you have already stated that you will talk about your time in Annapolis on your podcast. So people can follow that on YouTube, Cheryl Glenn, Glenn.
Yes.
All right. So today, what I really want to talk to you about is the first episode of Cheryl Glenn Speaks. First of all, big ups to your engineer, whoever put it together, because you did a wonderful job. I'm pretty impressed.
Well, thank you so much. And my producer is Curtis Anderson, and he is phenomenal.
Well, Curtis Anderson, you did a great job. We might have some work for you over here at bemorenews.com and Black USA. Why was it important for you to cover this election, 2024 Baltimore?
Donnie, we have a void in Baltimore City. We don't have anyone with my background, my experience and knowledge who can bring to the general public the information that is of the utmost importance for people to make good decisions, good sound decisions on who to vote for when you are voting for these candidates. It is critically important. Being a candidate myself for so many elections, I know that people really don't take the time to investigate people as they should. It's all about the feel-good advertisements that you see running on television and the mailers, the slick mailers that people send out. But they don't, the general public really doesn't delve into why someone should be elected or re-elected. And so I want to use my experience, my background, to bring information to the general public, not just for the election, but for a variety of issues, including the Maryland General Assembly, Baltimore City Hall, the national legislature, the U.S. House of Representatives, the U.S. Senate, everything. I'm going to talk about any and everything.
All right. Well, let's start with, and let me just say, I listened to the broadcast all the way from beginning to the end. I had to call you about 30 minutes into it so that I could so that we could book you here for today, and you graciously agreed. But I thought you gave I agreed with just about everything you said. So let's start with the mayoral race. Who do you like for mayor?
I am on record as endorsing, surprisingly, Saru Vigaraja. And I told Saru I never thought I would see the day where I would be supporting him and endorsing him publicly. But when you look at the choices, our choices are such that I'm not willing to give Brandon Scott a second term because I've lived in Baltimore City all of my life. And I have never seen Baltimore in the shape that it's in right now. We are really a dirty city. Our children aren't learning at the rate that they should be learning at. It is just really, our tax rate is too expensive. We pay the highest property taxes in the state of Maryland. And it's more expensive to live here in Baltimore City, car insurance rates and everything. And we get much less in terms of the services that we are entitled to. Our public safety is crazy. We have become a city of lawlessness. It is absolutely crazy. And I don't know how Brandon Scott can brag about, the success he's made in those areas. And he loves Sonia Santelises. They just honored her about 4 months ago. And along with some of the state legislators, I don't know how she could be honored when if she was working in private industry, she would have been fired years ago because of the results of her administration. And when you look at my longtime friend, Sheila Dixon, I supported Sheila throughout everything, throughout her entire career. But when you look at the money that's being poured into her candidacy from Sinclair Broadcasting Chairman David Smith and his family, and also John Jake Lukemeyer. I mean, when you dance to the drummer, you got to pay to the piper. That's an old time saying. And I'm sorry, when I look at the fact that these people are funding her campaign, and then you see Eric Costello with her at all of the public safety conferences and town hall meetings, you can see the handwriting on the wall. Eric Costello represents one district, the 11th City Council District. Why is he all of a sudden citywide with Sheila Dixon? And I'm nervous about that because I already know. I've been in politics a long time, and I already know what that means. I don't believe
that means he's going to be city council vice president.
Oh, he could be being set up to be the next mayor, easily, or the city manager under her mayorship. And something is afoot that is very uncomfortable to me because I'm not a person who sees eye to eye with Eric Costello on a lot of issues. I have my own concerns about him, and I'm not willing to vote for Sheila Dixon and roll the dice to believe that other people will be running this city.
Well, Delegate, couldn't one argue that in 2016, when there were 1,800 voting irregularities in Baltimore City, Hassan Giordano, myself, C.D. Witherspoon, and a few others got out there and got that election decertified. There were 1,800 voting irregularities in Baltimore City compared to 200 in the rest of the state's 23 jurisdictions combined. And then in 2020, out of nowhere, Brandon Scott pops up with 10,000 votes that nobody seems to remember. Couldn't one argue that given that she was seemingly robbed in 16 and robbed in 20, that hell, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result? Maybe this was her attempt at trying a different approach.
Well, I do remember that election, and I fully supported Sheila Dixon then. I have never not supported her, and I agree with everything you said. However, I draw the line. Listen, as a person who ran for office and served 13 years in the Maryland General Assembly, I wouldn't take money from an organization, an entity, or a person who I was diametrically opposed to in terms of their philosophy as it relates to Black consciousness. You know, I wouldn't. I don't understand why Sheila Dixon felt that it was something that she had to do. This political PAC has raised more than $600,000 right now for her. That's headed up by Sinclair Broadcasting. We all know what Sinclair Broadcasting is about, and now they own the Sun papers.
Well, let me just let me dig into that a little bit. One thing Sinclair Broadcasting is associated with is term limits, and I can recall back in the day when Acorn was here in Baltimore, they came out with Question P. And Question P, instead of us having 6 3-member districts, it broke it down to 14 single-member districts. And given the work that Larry Gibson and others have done citywide, including the Goon Squad, to help establish a strong Black political history here in the city of Baltimore, it baffles me that people like Doc Cheatham and Michael Johnson would champion a cause that limits Black political power. I still don't understand it.
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I have been an advocate for the people, as you know, all of my adult life. I served 2 terms on the city central committee, the Democratic State Central Committee. You don't get paid for that. That's completely volunteer. I've been a PTA president. I started the City Union of Baltimore, representing 8,000 city employees that was organized from a mustard seed thought over 5 years. I didn't get paid a dime for that until I became president. So I have really spent my entire adult life advocating and serving the general public. So I agree with you. And I don't know why people make the decisions that they do, but I would tell you, I don't have to go along with all of the decisions when I disagree with them and their philosophy, you know, and who they align themselves with. I really, and in terms of term limits, I believe the term limits are handled by the ballot box. You know, we ought to do what DC does. If they don't like your leadership role, whether it's mayor or the council or what have you, in DC, they get rid of you. But in Baltimore, we seem to just get locked into certain people and are afraid to, you know, unelect them. You know, so I don't agree with term limits at all. I believe that ought to be handled at the ballot box, and that's why I say I don't believe that Brandon Scott deserves a second term, because when you see the results of his 4-year administration, it's laughable. I don't know how anybody in their right consciousness could feel comfortable giving him another 4 years in Baltimore City. I dare you to ride through the streets of Baltimore City and not hit a pothole. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's like driving through an obstacle course. And then you have to be concerned with, you know, the lawlessness afoot. We saw a young man the other day on a dirt bike get off his dirt bike and dance in front of a police car, taunting him like, you can't do anything to me. How did we get to that point? You know, I don't want to live in a society of lawlessness. I want people to respect each other and to support each other and respect other people's property. And in terms of our schools, I want our children to get a first-class education that they rightfully deserve, as, you know, mandated by our state constitution. And they're not getting that. And they won't get that under Sonia Santelisa's.
Well, let's dig into Sonia Santalisa. One of the things you mentioned in your podcast is how Baltimore City, and you know perfectly well from your work in Annapolis, that Baltimore City Public Schools is the 3rd highest funded school jurisdiction in the United States. At the same time, we seemingly are producing an inferior academic product.
Absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely.
Why when we have the money, and Why don't we have heat and air? How about those basics? I thought when the Maryland lottery came about in 1973, the primary purpose was money for education. Now we have a new football stadium, a new baseball stadium, and under the current gubernatorial administration, they just got money for renovations. At the same time, we have schools like Poly, like City, that don't have heat and air. I am perplexed.
And it's really sad. It's really sad that our elected officials are not holding the to what was started years ago. When I was there, we did the formulas for the funding, and now it's been called different things. Now the title is the Kerwin Commission, KRWAN, and that is what provides 2/3 of the funding to our schools. Dr. Santelises makes almost $500,000. Not just her, but when you look at her administrative team, they're bringing in the big time dollars, and it's a shame that our kids don't have the heat in the winter and the air in the summer after so many years. And then you look at the swimming pool at City College. So you have a whole class of people, going through 4 years at City College who have never been able to get into the swimming pool. That's unconscionable, But it all starts with the school board and the CEO. And when Brandon Scott says he doesn't control the schools, they have 9 members of the school board, 7 of which are appointed by the mayor. I was able to finally get legislation passed to get a couple of members elected. We're the only jurisdiction in the state of Maryland that has the minimal number of elected members to our school board. And that is one of the huge problems, that parents don't have any input. You go to the school board meeting and you've been there. You don't get an opportunity to speak.
Mr. Glover, 30 seconds. Mr. Glover, 30 seconds. That's what they would say. Charlie Duggar, 30 seconds. 30 seconds, Mr. Duggar. That's all you have. 30 seconds. That's what they would say, delegate.
Oh yes, absolutely.
I gotta ask you to tie this in together for me. Before Sonia Santelises, her mentor was Andres Alonzo. He got rid of 75% of the principals in Baltimore City public schools, many of whom were Black women, and they were replaced by Teach for America educators. Is that correct?
Yes, and including the current president of the Senate, Bill Ferguson. He came out of Teach for America, and I believe also, I think Zeke Cohen did too. I'm not sure, but I think I'm correct on that. But you're absolutely right. We don't have community schools like we used to. We used to have, and that is the problem with Baltimore City. We don't have the full-fledged communities that we so much need. Our children are growing up in communities, and God knows where they're going to go to school. Every time you turn around, they're closing another school, and they got rid of all of the schools just about that had the names of our Black historical figures. You're right. Dr. Alonzo was horrible for our school system.
How could Black people on the Baltimore City School Board allow, for instance, here in Sandtown, these people on the school board changed the name of George Kelson Elementary School to Sandtown Winchester Academy? What these idiots were ignorant of is the fact that George Kelson was a Black entrepreneur, funeral director, business owner here in Sandtown who employed dozens of people.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I went to former Senator Nathaniel McCadden when all of that was happening. I mean, I had tears in my eyes. I was saying to him, Senator, wake up. I said, Dr. Alonzo is destroying our school system.
And our history.
Yes, absolutely. But I didn't get much out of that conversation. So I decided to run for office myself so I could make a difference. And, of course, I did all that I could do. I was fighting for a partial elected school board for that very reason, so that the community and parents would have input. I was fighting for half of the board to be elected and half to be appointed. But of course, the legislators would not go along with me. They are controlled by the people who give them the money. That's wrong, because he's not controlled by anybody other than himself.
Okay, we're going to get to that U.S. Senate race, but as it relates to the mayor's race, I have to ask you, is Martin O'Malley's fingerprints on any of this city election? Is his fingerprints, is his hands on anything statewide? Is Martin O'Malley still a prominent feature in Maryland politics?
It reminds me of the mafia, where it's hard to get to the Godfather because he has all of his henchmen, But I had heard that, and I do believe that, because as I said, I have a lot of experience in Baltimore City politics, and I do believe wholeheartedly that Martin O'Malley is still in control. But of course, it's hard to prove because the people that he's controlling would never admit that. But you can kind of see, because of the people who are aligned with the developers and are taking money from the developers to do their bidding, and these people, the money controls. It's a shame. So that's why I'm disappointed with Sheila Dixon. I'm very impressed with the Ruben Rogers campaign. He's the first mayoral candidate who has run a campaign based on public campaign financing, which means, as you know, that the money has to come from the people who live in the city.
Well, one thing I agree with you on the podcast is that you said over the past 3.5 years, and I have said the exact same thing, he is the only mayoral candidate who we saw actively engaged in the community. And I put it up on Be More News, and people misread what I was saying. But if they go back and read it, I wasn't endorsing him or saying that he should be mayor. I simply said that he was the only candidate, mayoral candidate from 2020 who lost, who stayed actively involved. For instance, I don't recall seeing Bob Wallace once in the past 3.5 years.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. And that's what I have a problem with. If you really want to be involved in the city of Baltimore and make a difference, then your passion has to come from somewhere, And I even before Bob Wallace ran 4 years ago, and you know how long I've been involved in politics since 1983. I've never seen Bob Wallace involved other than with his own personal business. I've never seen him involved in issues. And 4 years ago when he lost, I even told some people who I knew supported him, I said, if he is thinking about possibly running for mayor again, then he needs to stay involved. And I said, I'm willing to sit down and meet with him. I never received the response.
Do you think Do you think that Bob Wallace demonstrated political ignorance when he came out in a 9-1 Democratic city running as a Republican and then as an independent and then now as a Democrat, to which Jason Rodriguez so famously stated, will the real Bob Wallace please stand up?
Absolutely. Yeah. Who are you? That's why I said, a person, and I don't have anything personal against him. I really don't know Bob Wallace personally, but I could never feel comfortable electing him to be in charge of Baltimore City, which controls our destiny, our day-to-day lives, our children's lives. There's no way that I could give him that control.
Well, I'll say this, Delegate, that we have covered Black business from our inception 22 years ago. And when I think of the people who have advocated for Blacks to get business in the city of Baltimore, his is not the first name that comes to mind.
I agree. agree.
Arnold Jolivet comes to mind. Robert Lee Clay comes to mind. Hell, even Wayne Frazier comes to mind, despite his our battles from time to time. But in terms of advocates, and Wayne has a huge breakfast coming up in May. But in terms of black business, that's not something that I associate immediately with Bob Wallace off the break.
You're right, and I think it's a shame that we don't have anything that's honoring the life of Robert Clay in the city of Baltimore. Robert Clay was a visionary person. He gave his life, literally. He gave his life to, advocating for blacks to be more involved and get more contracts in the construction industry and businesses and so forth. And it's a shame. I admired Robert Clay. I really did.
So I got to ask you this question. Baltimore Gas and Electric, when Mayor Scott ran for lieutenant governor, he ran with Jim Shea. Nobody had even heard of Jim Shea on the political front as a candidate. We later saw that when Brandon Scott won the mayorship in 2020, Jim Shea became his solicitor, one of the first contracts signed, and BeMoreNews.com seems to be the only news outlet that seemingly remembers what happened. The first contract, huge contract, that the mayor signed was a $42 or $43 million contract with Jim Shea's law firm, Venable. Venable, unknown to many, is responsible for negotiating the Baltimore Gas and Electric conduit system takeover, where BG&E then is in charge of the underground utilities for the city of Baltimore. No one has said a word. No one has said a word about it except the three white women down in Federal Hill who were locked up, arrested, manhandled. And I just knew white people would be coming out against Brandon Scott in this election, but I'm not sure that's the case.
I don't think it's the case either, but some some remember and talk about it. In fact, I admired Farouk for putting it in one of his ads. I mean, when these ladies had their little peaceful rally where they were saying, no, you're not going to come in our community and put up those ugly regulators, which I have one outside in my front yard. And I told Farouk I was so happy to see him take on that issue because I dealt with BG&E personally. It was a horrible, horrible situation. They never restored my front to where it was before they came in and dug up my grass. But I was happy to see the ladies stand up and take public action against this big entity, BG&E. And what did Brandon Scott do when they called? He sent in a battery of police, leadership and officers, to deal with these three ladies. On the flip side, when we had the massacre in Brooklyn homes where two people were killed and 30 people were shot, you couldn't get police to go there in time to be in control of that situation. And you see that the mother of the young lady who was murdered, she is in one of Farouk's ads. She is supporting Farouk Vignerange, because she felt the loss of her daughter because of politics. It's sad. It's really sad. You could send all the police to Federal Hill to deal with three white women who were opposing what BG&E was doing. But after call, 911, and Safe Streets was there.
I wanted to ask you about that. Has Mayor Scott put too much money into Safe Streets? I'm understanding that money could be going somewhere else besides to where we are told it's being sent.
You know what? You got to be Ray Charles not to see that there's something wrong. Like they used to say that there's a fly in the ointment somewhere. There's no rhyme or reason why the mayor should support and endorse Safe Streets like he does. I haven't seen any difference. I live 5 minutes away from the site that was closed down in Bel Air, Edison. That site was closed down for a long time. I think maybe like 7 months after the FBI raided it. There wasn't any difference in the crime in Bel Air Edison. I lived 5 minutes away. My district office used to be right there on the corner of Bel Air and Erdman. And so why do we even need it? And there are too many unanswered questions in terms of the training and everything. Who's hired? Why they're hired? And remember, you had that father on the news saying over and over again that Safe Streets is not what it's cracked up to be. His son was killed, and the person who was working for Safe Streets, he was saying, had something to do with it. You know, it's a shame, but why do we need Safe Streets? I've been in the city all the time. Why do we need a city manager? Brandon Scott is the only mayor that we've ever had to have a six-figure city manager. If you need to hire somebody to run the city, then why are you running for mayor? Sheila Dixon never had a city manager. You know, so I don't understand that. But we go along, and then let's talk about redistricting. Oh my God, redistricting was horrible. When did you realize that the Jewish community has one city council district, and they have one representative? That's Jitsi Schreiber. They redistricted the community up there at Howard Park. Now has 3 city council representatives. They cut off the line right at the street where Chris Urban is. Why? They took Chris Urban out of that district where Jitsi Schreiber was. So what does that mean? So Chris can never challenge Jitsi Schreiber ever again? It's brazen. The things, and then the black representatives on the city council didn't raise any objection to it. Not one objection. The black community has 3 representatives. The Jewish community has 1. And also the Jewish community doesn't have any speed cameras. I don't hear anybody talk about that. If you turn right onto Northern Parkway from Park Heights Avenue and go all the way up to Hooks Lane, and I keep my GPS on because I had too many speed camera tickets at one time a couple years ago. There's not one speed camera. But if you turn left into the black community, you're going to get hit with multiple speed cameras on Park Heights Avenue.
Oh boy, the city of Baltimore. So we have a black governor, we have a black attorney general, we have a black treasurer, we have a black Baltimore mayor, a black Baltimore city council president, a black Baltimore city comptroller, we have a black speaker of the house. We have blacks in political positions like never before. Are you telling me we are more sterile politically than ever before also?
Well, I believe what Martin Luther King used to say. It's the content of your character that matters to me as opposed to your skin color. You know, old folks used to say skin folk ain't always kinfolk.
But my daddy said white people vote white given a choice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Blacks are the only race where we constantly, tear each other down. Listen, I'm a proud black person, a proud Democrat. However, I don't always vote for the black person. I can tell you years ago, I supported Mary Pat Clark for mayor because I was a strong union leader, and I knew that Mary Pat Clark was more in tune to the needs of working people than Kurt Schmoke was. I took my hits with that, but I could justify any decision that I made because I cared more about the needs and the issues of working men and women. All right,
let me get to this city council president's race. We got you for 15 more minutes. Now, this city council president's race, you got Shannon Sneed, who was reported said she wanted to leave last night's forum, but she ended up staying, running for city council president. You have Zeke Cohen, who, if I'm not mistaken, recently got the endorsement of Governor Westmore. And then you have city council president himself, Nick Mosby. Your thoughts?
Well, listen, I I have watched Zeke Cohen. As I said, I've been engaged on the front lines of politics since 1983. I have not been impressed with Zeke Cohen and his representation of the first district. In fact, there was a lot of rumor that Zeke Cohen was going to have grave difficulty in getting reelected. There were a lot of people in that first district who was very, upset with him in terms of his representation. He wasn't showing up to community meetings. He wasn't being proactive when it came to the, issues that they were having in Fells Point and in Canton and so forth. So I don't see anything that Zeke Cohen did that would make him a good candidate to be second in charge of the city of Baltimore. In addition, I said on my podcast, it makes me nervous when I know that Zeke Cohen is in lockstep with Yitzi Schleifer, who I know doesn't have the interests of Black people at heart. I know that. And then you look at Shannon Sneed. Now, I don't have anything personal against Shannon, but Shannon served one term as city council representative for the 13th district.
Have you supported her? Didn't you support her initially?
I supported her then. Yes, I did. I supported Shannon then. And when she ran the first time and lost, then when she ran the second time, she finally got in. And I thought that she was going to, stay there and learn and be actively engaged in city politics for the long haul. But after only 4 years, and really I don't remember anything substantive that Shannon did in those 4 years to qualify her to jump ship and decide to run for president of the city council. So she lost that race, and then she ran for lieutenant governor. I believe experience does matter. I really do.
Well, clearly, don't you think she was trying to do what Brandon did, run for this statewide position to get her name out there?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I know that, Shannon, has been very closely aligned with Brandon Scott and Senator Corey McCray, my senator,
I don't think they told her to get out there and run for lieutenant governor.
Well, I can tell you this, that Tom Perez and Senator Corey McCray are very closely aligned, because Tom Perez used to be the Secretary of Labor. I worked with Tom Perez when I was in the General Assembly. We worked on the Workplace Fraud Act together, but I didn't support him when he ran for governor because, again, he had only been elected to one term in Montgomery County to a small local jurisdiction.
And so the truth is, we really didn't know what he was made of.
Exactly. And so I wasn't supportive of that team.
And he goes back to like 2006. I remember him coming to our Politics 06 events at Eden's Lounge.
Okay. But I am supporting the incumbent, Nick Mosby. And I know that Nick Mosby has had some, like I said on my podcast, he's had some personal mistakes that he has made. But like I said, so have we all.
Bilal Ali said that he stood by his wife. Antonio Glover said he stood by his wife. And I was very warm to hear that because there was some may have had a different perception.
Well, you know what? A lot of us say he actually fell on the sword for his wife. He really did. And he knew the political cost that it might have on him, but he did it because, and I believe he told the truth. I really do. But he has the experience. I believe that Nick, as city council president, deserves a second term. My God, if people feel like Brandon Scott deserves a second term for mayor, good grief. With Nick Mosby, absolutely deserves a second term. So I'm willing to give him that term. I'm not willing to roll the dice with Shannon Sneed, who doesn't have the experience, nor Zeke Cohen, who I have severe questions about. But I hope that Nick Mosby can be reelected so that we can see the true Nick Mosby in the next 4 years doing what needs to be done on the Board of Estimates and as city council president, being second in control of the city, you know, for the people of Baltimore. I pray that he gets reelected.
So let's go to what might be. I mean, so you like let's get this right. You like Vic Naraja, you like Vic Naraja for mayor, Nick Mosby for council president, and we should qualify the Vic Naraja, even though you were formerly a Sheila Dixon supporter, as was I. I'm staying out of this mayoral race. I decided that some time ago after Catalina Bird did a spin kick on me, told me to leave her mayor, Brandon Scott, alone. Okay, so with that said, let's get to this U.S. Senate race.
I'm absolutely supporting David Trone. And I would tell you that the machine, the Maryland Democratic machine, is lock, stock, and barrel in support of Angela Also Books. And I know Angela Also Books, but you know, when you look at the fact that the people in Prince George's County don't support her.
And look, I just want to qualify this because we know that Trone has a boatload of money. This is not a paid endorsement. You have not been paid to say what you're saying.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not at all. In fact, David Trone didn't even know that I was making this endorsement. I don't. You know me, Doni. I've never been paid to do much of anything in my life. That's why I'm still driving a 2013 van. You know, I don't roll like that. I really care about what I do and what I say. And so Angela Also Books did not get that Apple endorsement. Many of the teachers involved in that Apple endorsement, that is the Maryland State Teachers Association. They live in Prince George's County. And you know, I'm a strong union person. And also, when you look at Aisha Braveboy is the current state's attorney. She has the seat that Angela Also Books just had before she became county executive. Aisha Braveboy is endorsing David Trone. And then a good friend of mine, Delegate Jocelyn Pena-Melnick, who's the first Latina chair of a standing committee in Annapolis, she's supporting David Trone, along with, I believe the number is 25 labor unions. And it's very important for me because I support working men and women. And I don't like it when people are filling their campaign coffers with the money that comes from lobbyists and the big interests like BG&E, Pfizer, the pharmaceutical industry. We know what they're about. So I really admire the fact that David Trone is using his own money. I don't know why anybody would have a problem with that. That man built that business, Total Wine and More, from the ground up.
Now he did say the word jigaboo.
Well, you know what? And yes, he did. Yes, he did. The thing I admire about him, and I mean, that wasn't something that felt good. Of course not. But he owned it right away. He owned it. And he apologized. He didn't say, no, y'all misread me and misquoted me. He admitted to it, and he apologized for it. But here's the big issue, Doni. We have to look at the general election.
I was going to get to that. You don't like Larry Hogan.
It's not that I don't like Larry Hogan.
You don't trust him. You don't trust him to represent a 2-1 Democratic state on a national level.
Heck no. And here's why. And the national, and people need to understand this. In the National Congress, the Federal Congress, you have two caucuses. You have the Democratic caucus, you have the Republican caucus. He's got a caucus with one or the other. He is not going to caucus with the Democrats. He is not, and he's already been very clear on where he stands with abortion rights.
I thought he supported a woman's right to abortion.
He's been very flip-floppy on that issue. Now that he's running for Senate, he is not openly saying that he supports a woman's rights to make decisions for her body. He basically tries to stay away from that issue. And that ought to make women uncomfortable. But we cannot afford to turn over the control of the U.S. Senate to the Republicans. And
I thought he differentiated himself from a Donald Trump. I thought he even...
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I agree with you. But that's as governor. That's as governor. We're not looking at a gubernatorial race, and people need to get that clear. He wouldn't be just representing, the state of Maryland and stay in the state of Maryland. Remember, he used to say clearly he wasn't interested in going to Congress. He didn't change his mind until Mitch McConnell called him and convinced him to run, and it was brilliant. I mean, that was a brilliant Republican strategy.
Well, here's our concern with both also Brooks and with David Trone. They have a lack of support of black media.
When you say a lack of support,
they don't advertise on black media.
Well, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah,
However,
let them know. Let them know we've covered every election since 2002.
I will certainly contact the Trump campaign because I believe that they should be supporting and spending their money to get advertisements on black media.
We talked with David Trone last summer of 2023. And I last spoke with him briefly about 2 weeks ago, and he said, "I'll call you right back." And I said, "I'll be waiting."
Okay.
Haven't heard from him since.
I can understand that being a concern of yours, a major concern of yours, because of your capacity as BeMoreNews.com.
Well, not just for Be More News. There's also the Afro. There's WEAA. A lot of times, people want to come into our community and speak to us. They use Fox. They use the mainstream networks, but we cover news that they won't cover.
And you're right. You're right. Now with the Afro, I've taken a lot of issues with some of the work that the Afro has done, including when it comes to me. The Afro was never supportive of me. I don't know why, but they were never. They would give me a one-line endorsement, if that.
Nobody covers Annapolis or City Hall, I would say, in this city from an African-American perspective better than Be More News. There are other news outlets that cover our community in a rather patronizing way, but who genuinely care about black business, about public education, about returning citizens. America has 25% of the world's inmates are incarcerated persons, while we only have 5% of the world's population.
Yeah,
we cover affordable housing and universal access to healthcare. As a matter of fact, no media outlet covered the West North Avenue Development Authority's big rollout plan on Saturday, which had over 200 community residents who lived between Mount Royal and Walbrook Junction. We were the only news outlet there, as is often the case. Nobody really covers our issues unless it's, nobody else is on the ground.
Well, everything that you just said is the foundation of my reasoning to start my podcast. I want you to have a partner in me for my podcast because I intend to cover, the national, the local, the state legislative issues and other issues. I want to talk about everything, in my podcast because it's needed. And you shouldn't be out there by yourself. And I do agree with you, Doni. And I'm glad that you've hung in there. Well,
that's what I wanted to share with you. I wanted to share this with you. We have hung in there, but I can tell you, we can get more support from a Bob Ehrlich, from a Larry Hogan, than from our own damn Democrats. And that just pinches me on the butt. It's like
it's shameful. It's shameful.
How in the world do our Democrats, white or black? I mean, I remember Delegate Marianne Lasanti from Harford County called Prince George's County the nigger district.
Yes.
No one made any noise about that except us.
Well, I tell you what, you will recall that I stood as chair of the Black Caucus and asked for her to be terminated.
That's right.
You know, myself and Darrell Barnes and Ben Brooks and others, you know, stood there in Annapolis and asked for her termination. We sure did. And she and you know, of course, we were ignored. But you know, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. We can't afford to turn over the control of the U.S. Senate to the Republicans.
I don't know. I got to throw this one at you. When you look at the billions that have been sent to Ukraine, when we look at the billions that have been sent to Israel, I'm one of those African Americans who is wondering, where are our reparations?
Absolutely. And I have some ideas for reparations. And guess who the only candidate running for mayor who has talked about reparations? That is the Ruvik Naraja.
And we that's what my point is. We've got more blacks in political position than ever before. And they say you have not because you ask not. You get what you negotiate. No one's speaking up about reparations like it's a dirty word.
Well, unfortunately, if I was still elected, we would be talking about reparations in a concrete way.
I got to end with this, big sis. Yesterday, I watched a movie on Fire Stick about Harriet Tubman. I watched this woman and the sacrifice she made from Dorchester County, Maryland, all the way through New York, through Philadelphia with William Still, through New York City, through Albany, New York, all the way up to Canada. I looked at the sacrifices she made, rescuing over 700 people from South Carolina at the Combahee River to 70 others straight out of Maryland, including her own family. And I just wonder what a Harriet Tubman would say about us today. What do you think she would say about us today?
Harriet Tubman would shake her head because she would wonder why, with all of the blacks that we have in leadership, why we are still fighting the fights that we're fighting. It's shameful. Again, you know, sometimes voting for a person just because they're black is not the answer. Is that, you know, I'm a proud black woman, but I don't always support black if that's not the right person to get what I need done at the right time. So you won't see me just blanketly supporting black people. If that was the case, I'd be standing with Bob Wallace or Brandon Scott. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to compromise my integrity for political expediency.
Any final thoughts?
I just pray that everybody will come out and vote, whether it's early voting from May the 2nd through the 9th or May the 14th. At least exercise your right to vote.
And that's next week.
Yes.
Next Thursday.
I will be working the polls every single day. Every single day. And, you know, so I just pray that people will get elected. I pray that our city will turn itself around with the right leadership, from the mayor to the president of the city council to the city council representatives. And then 2 years from now with our senators and delegates. And who knows? I might just throw my hat back in. Who knows? I right now I'm not at that point, and my daughter tells me that you bet not ever run again because people didn't appreciate all the work that I put in. But sometimes it's hard to sit back. But I appreciate you, Doni, and I thank you for inviting me to come on, and I'll be happy to accept your invitation anytime you want me to come on and talk about any issue.
Well, we support your podcast. You just send us the next one. We'll get it up. And for the record, Cheryl Glenn likes Vig Naraja for mayor, Nick Mosby for city council president, and David Trone for U.S. Senate.
Yes, absolutely.
Up to date, down tomorrow. Do your day and everything will follow. Nothing to it but to do it. I got to do it. regardless of how I feel. I am somebody. I am my brother's keeper. You've been listening to the Donnie Glover Show right here on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Do share this podcast with your friends, and thank you for your support of our news outlet. We attempt to cover Black issues in the Black community, and that includes Black business, public education, returning citizens, universal access to healthcare, and affordable housing. Have a great day. Good morning, world.